I'm coming at you from my very noisy backyard because I am insisting on filming in this beautiful evening glow. The biggest section of my haul is from a used bookstore I just went to today, and I got totally carried away. I went in for one book. I went in for Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse simply because it was one of my favorite books in college, and I read an article about it recently and it reminded me that I have not been able to place my copy of To the Lighthouse in years, so I must have lost it. Went to the used bookstore, not there, but that's okay. The first book I have for you today is Edith Wharton's The House of Mirth. Edith Wharton is considered a major American novelist. I have never read her before. This one is Edgar Allan Poe. I have read Poe before, but I don't actually own any of his works, and I thought this cover was so enticingly creepy. I just had to pick it up. I'm looking forward to that, especially since it is October. I picked up a Jules Verne book simply because I'm really interested in the moon lately, and this is From the Earth to the Moon. I'm not even totally positive if this is fiction, because this is before rockets were really considered feasible, and I am really just in love with the color. I love that font. One of my favorite classic novelists is Henry James, and short story writer as well. I have never read The Turn of the Screw, but I know it's a creepy book, so I'm excited to give this a try. And what I like about this is it's not this big bulky book, but I can throw this in my purse for those antisocial times of mine. I am trying to read more poetry lately because sometimes I just don't want to read prose, and I would like to open up my mind a little bit more. So I got this really adorable copy of Emily Dickinson love poems. I thought this would be a great one just to have on hand, and I can look at this instead of looking at my phone. I mentioned that I'm interested in Virginia Woolf, and she's one of my favorite writers, but that's nothing original. Most people love Virginia Woolf. This is a practical guidebook to the work of Virginia Woolf, giving a little bit about her life as well as her writings, with some critical summary. I also thought this is a beautiful cover, so I'm excited to read this in tandem with the actual Virginia Woolfs that I got, which are Orlando, which is a novel by Virginia Woolf that I have never read, never heard very much about, but it's super fascinating. It deals with a character who switches genders, and it's set in the Elizabethan age. A Henry James novel called The Wings of the Dove about a New York heiress. Zadie Smith is one of my favorite current authors, living authors, and I have never read this book. It's a novel. It's called On Beauty, and I'm gonna be real, I have seen this title many times. I thought it was essays because it sounds like the title of a collection of essays, but it's a novel. Here's another collection of Emily Dickinson. I have nothing to say about this, just more poetry. Another book of poetry I got is a Chilean poet who I'm sure you've heard of, Neruda. He's one of the most famous poets in the world, and I've never actually owned any of his work or given his work any proper time. And Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own. This is Jane Smiley. I've never read Jane Smiley, but I know she is an important living author that won a Pulitzer. I hate the cover of this book, and it's really difficult for me to buy books when I hate the cover, but I feel like I should read Jane Smiley just because I have not. Here's a honking one. Beautiful condition at the used bookstore. I'm really excited about this one. And this is George Eliot. George Eliot is actually the pen name of Marian Evans. I know nothing about this book, but it's huge and it's beautiful. I don't know how long this will take me. I've been doing a lot of research on the publishing industry and agencies, and I came across this book. I was really drawn to the cover. I'm the kind of reader that if the cover is good, I might just buy it knowing very little about it. Okay, this is one that I've already read, but it's in this recent haul because I've been reading like a fiend lately. This book is kind of changing my life. This book is from 4 years ago, 2015, but it won the National Book Award. President Obama said it's his favorite book. Lauren Groff is the author. This is my first introduction to Lauren Groff, and I've heard from multiple places that Lauren Groff is the most prominent or most important writer of our generation, so I thought, hey, I should give her a try, and oh my gosh, I am in love with this book. This book is about a marriage, looking at it from the man's perspective and then from the woman's perspective, and it deals with rage and secrets, and it's just fascinating. But I will say that this book does not deal with infidelity, which I think was really interesting, because a lot of time when authors write about marriage, infidelity is involved. The prose is so incredibly beautiful. I highly recommend this book. It's also very sexy. This book recently won the Pulitzer Prize. I've heard of this book. I heard an interview with the author. I had never read it. It is about the Underground Railroad, actually, but then there's a magical realism element because the Underground Railroad turns into an actual railroad. Have not read it yet. I'm a huge fan of Joyce Carol Oates, and whenever I go to a used bookstore, I inevitably pick up some of her books because she's so incredibly prolific and she's been around forever. I just kind of pick them randomly. This one is You Must Remember This. It's a novel. What I love about Oates' writing is it's incredibly emotional on every page, and I'm realizing this about myself, that the books that I love are the ones that are highly emotional. And this is another Oates book I picked up, Angel of Light. This is something I picked up in DC that a bookstore worker recommended this to me. It's new and it's getting a lot of hype. I liked it. I didn't love it. John Green's latest book, he wrote The Fault in Our Stars, and I did read it. I read it very quickly. I have to be honest, this was probably my least favorite John Green book. I did not like it. I found it very familiar and not surprising at all, and I found that it a little bland, but don't tell anyone I said that because I feel bad. He's a fellow YouTuber, you know. This is The Little Prince. This is actually a French book, but this is the English translation, and my French teacher, who recently passed away, this was her favorite book and she always quoted this book, and I just saw this at the used bookstore today. It's actually a children's book, but adults enjoy it as well. It's a classic. And I just want to say I love you, Madame, and I miss you very much. That was very hard news to get. My last book, speaking of languages, I ordered a Spanish book. Guys, I'm gonna learn Spanish. It's gonna take me a hot sec. I think I ordered the wrong book. I think this is too advanced for me. I need someone to be like, hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? Because all I really know how to say is yo quiero Taco Bell. Seeing as I live in a neighborhood where it's predominantly Spanish speaking and I am often spoken to in Spanish and I would like to be able to respond, I decided to give it a go, but give me a moment. It's hard to learn a language, and I have not been dedicating the time. It's a lot of books to buy within a single month. I'm very aware of that, but let me defend myself for a moment. We moved in here in May, and there's a lot more to do than we anticipated. It's an old house, so we knew there were some things, but here, for example, we replaced our back door because our old door had a big hole in it and rats could come in, and it wouldn't really lock, so we needed to replace the door, and then we had to do new stucco and everything. Eric is very busy right now at work and studying for a big engineering test, and anyway, we have not set up the bookshelves, ergo my books are still being held captive in their moving boxes in the garage, and it's really upsetting for me because I didn't realize until I didn't have them how often I actually reference my books. This is how I justify how many books I have bought. However, most of these are used. Sorry, real quick, just because this one was in my backpack when I went on a walk last night. The Deeper the Water, the Uglier the Fish. I'm actually reading this one right now. It is really good. It's about two sisters whose mom tried to commit suicide and now they're living with their dad that they don't know in New York. It's really good. And look at the font and look at the color and look at the cover is what I meant to say. Goodbye.